Most people were looking.
On for years, so and it affects the community. But it just keep happening. They need to put some type of safety device because nobody was called at all.
Didn't they promise that people would be called if there was a danger?
That's what they said, yes, but that did not happen.
So, are they going to be held accountable? Because it seems like there's one oil explosion after another.
I think they should be held accountable for it.
You think there should be criminal penalties?
I think it does, yes. I really do.
Do you think racism has anything to do with the black Latino community here where the refinery is?
I don't think really racist plays a role in this. This is just another unfortunate accident that happened with Chevron.
You think if it was a wealthy community?
Would it happen? No. No, of course not. You see where the refinery is, don't you? It's right here in, urban, look around. This is where it's at, so.
And how long have you lived in this community?
I lived in this community for about maybe 30-something years.
How many explosions and releases have been?
1, 2, 3, 4. I say about 4 at the most.
Major ones?
Majors, yes, 4.
And minors?
Minors, probably about 6 or 7, give or take.
And has your family been affected health-wise?
My family has, yes. My daughter has asthma really bad, so she's been really affected. So I had to rush her to the hospital, because her asthma, she just had an asthma attack. She was outside playing, of course, and then I heard this loud boom sound, and I'm thinking, well, what is that, and then when my sister called me and told me, I had to rush outside and get my daughter, but by that time she had already had an asthma attack, so.
And you think Chevron's going to take care of her?
I'm hoping that they will live up to what they say they're going to do, so.
You think they will?
I'm hoping. That's all we can do is hope.
What do you think the union should do about this?
I think the union should be out here protesting like half of the citizens out here that lives out here in these areas. Because it affects a lot of people. It not just affects us, it affects our seniors, our pets, our plants, our cars, homes. So there you have it. This is Richmond for you.
They make a lot of profits, Chevron. Billions of profits and one of the highest profits.
Billions of dollars. Yes, they do.
And it seems, though, that they don't want to spend money to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. They don't want to spend money to make sure that this community right here is safe from their toxics.
That caused the incident, and we can continue to share with you the information as we know more about the incident itself. We intend not to make this the first and last of a community event. We will continue to work with community leaders and city officials to address our neighbors' concerns. We value your input, and as a member of the Richmond community for more than 100 years, we are committed to the success of this city, the community, and the refinery. Lastly, I want to stress that we place the highest value of all on safety. Safety of our employees, safety of our community, and safety of this city. This is the
Health Services said it made almost 19,000 automated calls. The shelter in place was finally lifted at 11:15 last night when the fire was contained.
Chevron's Richmond Refinery is one of 5 oil refineries located here in the Bay Area. The others are Valero's Benicia Refinery, the ConocoPhillips Refinery in Rodeo, Shell's Martinez Refinery, and the Tesoro Golden Eagle Refinery in Pacheco. Chevron's Richmond plant is the largest, producing about 150,000 barrels of gas a day.
I live in Richmond, and the poison cloud came over my house, and I packed my kids and my dog up and got the hell out of there.
And what's your child's name? Nina?
Yeah.
Was there a warning? Was there a warning, or did they phone you, or was there an alarm that went off?
None at all. None. There were sirens, but I didn't hear them. I was inside. I had a friend call me. That's how I found out about it.
Well,
I was getting a headache, and I was getting wheezy lungs, and I wondered why.
Well, why can't Chevron be depended on to have safe conditions at the refinery?
Because they're greedy bastards.
minute type of a leak in this line.
Chevron Fire Chief Mark Ayers says the leak was coming from an 8-inch pipe at Refinery Unit 4, seen here this morning from News Chopper 2. Refinery Unit 4 processes diesel fuel. Ayers says the emergency response teams were called in to assess the leak. About 6:30, the leak rapidly expanded and crews evacuated.
As they backed away and started to put up cooling water, that's when it opened up and initially found an ignition source and lit off.
It is not known yet what ignited the vapor or what caused the leak to begin with. Within 10 minutes, the emergency alert system was triggered. 20,000 automated calls to homeowners.
What do you think about the fire?
The thing was terrible. The worst thing that can happen. It's soft production. Guys have to go home. I'm a labor man. I feel for non-union and union people that we all need to make a wage. And if that's where they're going to work, they know the risks, because I started off from high school in Chevron. That was my first job in Chevron. So,
Do you think Chevron can be relied on, the oil industry, to run things safely?
I'd say in the past, no, but right now, I'd say they're right where they're supposed to be.
Even with this fire here?
You know, it's a strange thing about the fires. When you go to work there, they train you how to fight fires and everything. But I think they got the message worldwide. I think they have the message.
Well, why don't you have these kind of explosions in Japan and Europe?
Because Japan and Europe don't have the same environmental safety that we have here in this country. Over there, they get away with. In Ireland, they feed yellow cows. So
but they don't have explosions like these.
Oh, they have them.
No, in Europe they don't. In Japan and Europe they don't. No, I've been there.
I have too.
Yeah, they don't have big oil refinery explosions in Europe and Japan.
Well, they don't have a refinery the size of this one. It didn't start as early as the size of
this one was established. They have big refineries in Europe. And parts of Europe and in Japan, they have refineries too. They have to refine their oil in Japan. And they don't have big explosions there.
We didn't have an explosion. There was no explosion. It was a split in the pipe.
What happened?
It was a split in a pipe. And there was, I'm not saying it was any of my brothers and sisters that did the welding, but I will tell you this, our welders, their welds are the greatest welds in the world.
Do you think they had non-union contractors in?
Sure.
Do you think that may be causing the problem?
They had a shutdown 2 months ago with 1,500 men. None of them belong to our organization.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was the shutdown?
Pardon me?
What shutdown?
What shutdown? It was 2 months ago. They hired 1,200 men to go in there and do a shutdown or a turnaround, whatever you want to call it. They they brought in guys from Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas.
So they didn't use local people who were unemployed here, who were craft people here?
No. And what happened was they had this is the result sometimes of what happens when people get in a hurry. Accidents happen that are unforeseen because of the negligence of the workmanship, I think. If at all this is labor, organized or otherwise, I will tell you that if you're not trained right, you shouldn't be a welder.
My name is Linda Benoit, and I stay a block from the refinery, and I heard 2 loud booms and then the siren, and I was looking at the news, and they told me to close my doors and windows and secure everything, so I did that and stayed inside.
Do you have a phone call?
No, I didn't.
Aren't they required to call people when there's an emergency like this?
I don't know, but I know that I saw everything, the fire, the smoke, everything, and made sure that my house was locked up.
Did it affect you physically?
Yes, it did, because I have asthma. So this is why I'm here tonight, to find out, what's going on, what's going to take place, if the air is okay, and so forth. But I know we couldn't breathe where I live, and it was really bad. It was dark, everything. And I was a little afraid.
For asthma, if you already have a problem, it exacerbates the problem.
Exactly, because it messed with my breathing, and my respiratory, and I had headaches from it. A little nausea, but other than that, I'm here to find out, what they're going to do about it, and just curious, what's going to take place.
With their sign? You guys, we've been playing with them for 100 years. Nationalize the banks. Nationalize big oil. It's time now. We are now in global warming. This has been the warmest year on record, the first 6 months of this year. Food prices are going up next year. It's now. Global warming is now.
We're here for nationalization?
Absolutely. We must nationalize big oil. We must nationalize the big banks so we can, in a methodical way, shift to renewables. We have money flowing through the pockets of Richmond, and we have the Richmond Refinery, and there's no money for schools, no money to pave the streets, and we're in crisis. We're in crisis. Big oil.
You don't trust Chevron to...
It's not a matter of trust. It's not a matter of trust. These are institutions that are tyrannies. They are legally bound to make money, short-term profits for their investors. They have no concern about next year, let alone what our children will have.
This gentleman has been yelling. It's been 100 years of neglect for the concern about the community outside. It doesn't matter who got here first. I know that the argument is that the refinery is built here, and the community was built up around it. There's no place else for these folks to go. This is their home, this is their community, this is where generations of their families have lived, and we're sick of it.
And it seems like they're being terrorized with these explosions and fires and...
Absolutely. They have to send their children to school in these neighborhoods. They have hospitals that they have to go to. They have to raise their families in this environment, and it is absolute an antagonism to the community, and complete neglect and absolutely no care at all for the basic elements of health for the community.
Do you think these executives and managers should be jailed for their lack of ability to keep the plant safe?
If a corporation is really a person, then I'd like to see a person go to jail for the real crimes that they've committed. So absolutely, I think they should be held accountable. Executives should be held accountable. They're fiscally responsible to no one right now except for their shareholders. They need to be responsible to the people who have been living in their garbage dump for the last 100 years.
How many spills have there been, or how many accidents have there been in the last 10 years here?
I don't have an exact number, but there are dozens every month. There are releases from the flaring on a regular and absolutely regular basis. This is extraordinarily only because this accident was visible to the human eye. A lot of the consistent regular releases are done without sight unseen. There's no transparency about what this community is being exposed to either. The community doesn't have accurate information.
And is there a cancer problem as well in this community?
There's a cancer problem. There's cluster cancers. There's unusual amounts of other kind of respiratory diseases. There's incredibly high rates of asthma. There's just no doubt that this community has been suffering health-wise under the impact of one of the country's biggest polluters.
And do you think racism has anything to do with the community here?
Well, I don't think it's any coincidence that you're more likely to live next to a polluting facility like the Chevron Refinery if you happen to be a person of color. And of course, that's one of the factors involved, but you can't take that out. And of course, race has something to do with it.
What do you think is going to happen tonight?
Well, I think what's going to happen tonight is that Chevron's going to put a bunch of their PR flax out, and they're going to answer questions in the only way that they know how, and that's to put out their agenda. And I think what's really going to happen is Chevron's going to try to blame the community for this. They're going to turn this around and try to make it the community's fault for fighting against the expansion that they tried to pass through several years ago. And it's just dirty tricks. My name's Mia Yoshitani. I'm with the Asian Pacific Environmental Network.
Well, air samples taken from around the refinery by county health inspectors found that pollutants do not pose any significant health concern. Last big fire at the Richmond Refinery was way back in 2007. Investigators said a defective seal on a pump was to blame. And in 1999, an explosion there sent flames more than 100 feet into the air. 3 Chevron firefighters were injured.
A leak like that is not a quick fix. It depends on a number of circumstances. I mean, they would have to do an inspection of the pipe before they did any maintenance work on the pipe.
He says in rare cases, shutting down a processing unit is not the safest thing to do. But in general,
from our perspective, whenever there's a loss of containment, you know, it's the union's point of view that shutting something down is always the safest way to go. But we don't know what decisions were made or not made.
it's also not clear how effective the response was to the fire. Listen to the confusion during this 911 call.
Hello, we have a fire in process unit 4 crude.
Well, I don't know what that means, but okay.
We got a process unit coming to gate 31. It'll be a first level response for you guys.
Okay, what does that mean? How many do you need?
And many people have complained they didn't hear about the shelter-in-place order in a timely manner or at all. Supervisor Joya says the investigation will evaluate if a faster system is needed.
But these sirens and phone calls are meant to inform people when there is a release, and there's no perfect system, and some people unfortunately are missed, but we need to make sure that the system that we have is as effective as it can be to inform the greatest amount of people in the shortest amount of time.
So what caused the leak in the first place? Among the things that they'll be looking into is whether or not it was a faulty pipe, maybe there was some corrosion or a maintenance issue. And then there's the question about how long this plant or this refinery can operate in its current situation. According to a United Steelworkers Union rep, he said looking at the pictures, he thinks that there's significant damage to a cooling tower, and he thinks it could take 2 months before they get that repaired. And Ken, he added, he only thinks that this refinery has about a week's worth of product to refine.
Yeah, talking about cause, too, we can't leave out the possibility of human error that's cropped up in the past.
This is the rich running roughshod over the earth and leaving pollution everywhere they go to the detriment of the 99%. They're going to say sorry and they're going to move on doing what they usually do. As an example, I have a friend who lives just blocks away from the Chevron refinery. She said she heard 4 explosions before the plumes went over her house. Nigel Hearn, the Chevron manager last night, said that he was on the premises and that there were no explosions. So how and then the news, instead of saying we can't explain why Chevron denies the explosion, said we can't understand how the community members are saying there were. So whose side is the media on when they frame the question like they did?
You think there should be criminal prosecution of these executives and bosses?
Absolutely. We should hold everyone in positions of power accountable, and we should prosecute them as the criminals that they are.
And what about nationalization? You think private companies can really be do safe?
Well,
it seems like all the oil companies have one explosion after another.
Well, we've reached peak oil. Oil is beginning to disappear, and now is the time that we need to start looking into alternative energies. I proposed that Chevron start downsizing and turn the refinery into a clean energy research center. If they did that, they would be doing what needs to be done. And they will not do it. I don't believe they will. So that's why it needs to be nationalized, because under the guidance of the people, I'm sure that something like that would happen.
You think that if it was a public utility, there would be better health and safety?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And why is that?
Because we as citizens care about it, ourselves, we care about our community. I mean, we live here. And we also know how the goings-ons at Chevron affect the community. I mean, we're worried about how these pollutants are going to affect the community gardens and the gardens that people have in their backyards. We know that agribusiness is taking over our food, and how they're bastardizing the food that we eat with GMOs, and we don't want to eat that kind of food. We want to eat organic food, and the only way that we're going to do it is by growing it ourselves.
So you're against the biosynthetic laboratory that's in Richmond?
Yes, I am.
What is the future for the people of Richmond? I mean, they need jobs. They need a safe environment, yet it seems like every week there's more releases and more dangers for people here as far as survival. There are cancer rates, there's asthma, people have asthma here.
Well, like I said, we need jobs, but if it's at the cost of the health of the community, it's not worth it. We need to consider health first, job second, and not even job second. We need to consider them in conjunction with one another. When we think of jobs, we need to think of health.
So you're saying that people shouldn't have to get sick in order to go to work, or shouldn't have to...
That's right. And that's why I propose that Chevron downsize their refinery and turn it into a research center for clean energy. That's what we need to do in order to save the residents of Richmond and to promote clean air, clean soil, clean water.
Are you going to be saying that tonight?
I'm not going to go in there because that's a dog and pony show. You know, I'm not going to waste my time.
Which is something I, again, personally, and my leadership team and our employees deeply apologize for, and that's really why we're here to discuss and listen to your concerns tonight. I am personally committed to ensuring the relationship between the City of Richmond, its citizens, and our refinery continue in a positive manner, despite the drag everything we do. Unfortunately, an accident occurred yesterday, which is something I, again, personally, and my leadership team and our employees deeply apologize for, and that's really why we're here to despite the current challenges that we have. That is why we are doing the right thing by our neighbours and this community to ensure that everyone's health and well-being is being adequately addressed. Again, I thank you for coming tonight. I know that this is an important community event, but Night Out is part of our community activity tonight, and we've disrupted that. I'm sorry if many of you have missed that.
But were you affected by this burn?
Yes, I was. I think everybody in Richmond was affected by this burn.
How did it affect you?
It affected my eyes, my lungs. I had to be sheltered up in the house and close up, no air, and it's already no ventilation.
Did you get a warning before this thing? Did somebody call you, or was there a siren that went off?
Actually, my landlord called me, and sirens did go off, but that's about it. They just didn't go off as quickly enough as they should have.
We need to know, did Chevron, have they been cutting staff, yes or no, in terms of maintenance? The cause, we need to know short term. We need to have them clean up now in the short term. But they've been here 100 years, they've been polluting for 100 years, they're going to pollute for another 100 years. So I just don't get it. We need to occupy Chevron, we need to have a popular movement to make public utilities out of big oil and the big banks. And we can see that it's driving people out of their homes, and it's driving food prices are going up. Right now, we're told the very conservative, very conservative economists are telling us next year, higher food prices. So where's that coming from? It's coming from Chevron and the big oil. They're pushing this stuff. They're there to make short-term profits only. And we can't just ask them to clean up their act. We've got to seize them and convert them into public utilities. Right now, we can convert all of this into energy.
I think so.
The public comment session began.
We should be angry! What they do to us, we should be angry!
Chevron now says 949 people had to be treated for health issues, asthma, and other respiratory problems. Health officials are still testing for toxins.
I asked him directly to tell us what the pollutants are so we can figure out what's on our food that we distribute within our communities.
Members of a Richmond activist group claim whatever was in the air killed their community garden.
This community is a better community having Chevron here. And I think that's the end of the story.
Look at this.
Okay.
This picture here is taken from a full-page Chevron newspaper ad. It's
if you look at it closely, you'll see it's not even a real gas. It's a composite. Can you believe that? Anyhow, she's saying she's got asthma.
She's got asthma.
And she's very concerned about Chevron. She lives in Richmond. And I'm a father. And I have nothing but upper respiratory problems, so I have to wear this mask every single day of my life when I'm in this city. That's horrible. And so is Chevron.
Okay, what's your solution?
My solution is at the time that Chevron turn over the keys to the citizens, nationalize the refinery. That's what I think.
You putting this poison out here, killing us. And it's not just happening, is it happening in y'all neighborhood? No, it's not.
Do I have to look forward to having cancer?
Oh, yes, you do.
You know, does my grandchild have to look forward to having cancer?